If you've been trying to conceive, have you stopped to consider what the best kinds of exercise are along the way? And how is this different in the 2-week wait? And what about if you're undergoing treatments like IVF? In today's episode, I will be taking you through exactly what types of exercise you should focus on and what to avoid. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your time with me today. As I am recording this, we have just moved house and finally, all the boxes are away, but I have just had to evict my cat from the room I am recording this podcast in. She is not an indoor cat and she is not happy about being evicted. So I am apologizing in advance if you hear a very loud cat outside the room trying to get back in. Hopefully she'll be back to being an outdoor cat again soon. So I'm not moving house again for a very long time after this. We are going to be talking about today everything to do with exercise and trying to conceive, and if you are undergoing fertility treatments. I'm not sure if this is your experience, but it was definitely mine, and I notice this a lot with my students, but doctors really don't go into much specifics when you're trying to conceive and you say to them, can I keep exercising? Do I need to stop exercising? I find a lot of them will say, keep exercising, but, just take it easy, or, keep doing all the things that you love, but don't push yourself. But what does that mean? Take it easy, don't push yourself. Consider someone who's, say, a CrossFit athlete versus someone who very rarely exercises. Take it easy is going to be very, very different for both of those people. And we all know the benefits of exercise, right? Exercise has been widely researched and extensively studied, and we know how good it is for our overall health and our well-being and all those things. But how much is too much and how little is too little? Can you lift weights? Can you run? And it is so hard to find good information. Just before I started recording this, I put into ChatGPT, can I exercise when I'm trying to conceive? And basically the response is, again, yes, you can, but moderate exercise. Let's focus on things like gentle cardio and, not exerting yourself. But again, what does that mean? I find that no one is really willing to take accountability and give you a sort of a direct response. So I'm hoping that this episode today will clarify a lot of things for you. So just so you're aware, I am a yoga teacher, as I talk about a lot, but I am also a certified Pilates instructor and a personal trainer. I've been teaching movement since 2009, and I have studied extensively in women's health, hormonal health, functional training, pre- and postnatal exercise modifications, and of course, IVF and fertility preparation. So here is what I want you to know after many, many years of working in this space and teaching hundreds, probably thousands of women by this time. So what we're going to do is go through the menstrual cycle, because this is where you really need to be focusing. And if you're trying to conceive naturally at home, or if you're prepping for an upcoming treatment cycle, whether it's an IUI or an IVF cycle, this is going to apply. Now, if you don't have a menstrual cycle or it's incredibly irregular, I would recommend you go back and listen to last week's episode with Lindsay Lusson. She talks a lot about how you can get your cycle started and more regular and synchronized if you don't currently have a cycle. And you can do that through mostly considering your nutrition, but lots of exercise considerations as well. So go back and listen to that if you need to. But if you do have a regular menstrual cycle, here is what we need to start focusing on. So I'm going to start with menstruation. During your period, your hormone levels and your energy levels are at their lowest. They are their most baseline that they will be throughout your cycle. So it is no surprise that we often feel really exhausted or tired at this phase of our cycle. And it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It doesn't mean that, you shouldn't have pushed yourself. You shouldn't have done this or that. We are meant to feel less energetic at this phase of our cycle. And it actually takes a lot of effort and energy for your body to release the previous month's build up and shed that lining of the uterus. We forget that the uterus is also a muscle, so it's working really hard. So this is not a time to be getting up at 5 a.m., going to the gym, pushing yourself, doing, fasted cardio or weight training on a black coffee. Like, this is a time to rest, sleep in, skip the gym, find little things or little parts throughout your day where you can just take a moment for yourself. Now, I know it's not possible for us all to have a few days off work every month when we have our period. Maybe in the future, wouldn't that be amazing? So no, we can't just completely put pause on our lives. But what we can do is say, look, have I got 20 minutes or a half an hour here? What would I normally do? And instead, can I do something that just nourishes my body and my soul? So lay on the couch, read a book, watch Netflix, just do something where you are not physically exerting or pushing yourself. Now, I'm going to explain why this is so important as we get through the rest of the menstrual cycle. But if you are pushing yourself at this stage, you're going to be increasing your stress and your cortisol levels. And that will potentially set you up for a much more unbalanced menstrual cycle for the month ahead. During your period, it's also, important to note that the types of exercise that we want to do, we don't just want to do absolutely nothing. You don't want to just lie around for a few days, but things that keep good circulation and blood flow going are really important. So going for a walk, just get outside, get some fresh air. That sort of bilateral movement is so calming and regulating for your nervous system. Being out in nature, also really calming for any stress that is going on in your life. And I find that restorative yoga is just heaven at this time of the cycle. So these beautiful poses where you're literally lying around on pillows. The poses that we do are meant to open out tension in the hips and the pelvis and the lower back to allow that blood flow to release really gently and easily and hopefully reduce any cramps or any tension. I have a lot of students who get back pain at this time of the month, and it's a wonderful way to ease a lot of that. So as your period starts to finish, we move into the follicular phase. And this is where your hormone levels and your energy levels are starting to rise. So estrogen will start to rise, LH, FSH, testosterone, they all start to rise in order to prepare for ovulation. So as your period tends to lighten, and I find it's around sort of days 3 or 4 for both myself and a lot of my students, where you feel that energy coming back. So that's a signal to your body that it's time, a signal from your body, that it's time to perhaps go and engage some more intense exercise. Now, this is going to look so different for everyone. And I think the most important thing when it comes to exercise is, what do you enjoy? Because you're not going to be committing to something that you hate. So what is it that you enjoy doing? Is it dance classes? Is it HIIT workouts? Is it long runs? Is it weight training? Go and enjoy what you love to do. So I find that, as those hormone levels are rising and you get to, that second week of your cycle, as you're getting towards ovulation, you should really be noticing those energy levels are rising and increasing. And as you get to ovulation, we should notice that our energy is kind of at its peak. Our libido should be rising. We have more energy and capacity for social situations and gatherings. And if you notice that your energy levels are not rising, if you are dragging yourself around through your ovulation phase, this is a signal that perhaps you were pushing yourself a little bit too much in that previous menstrual phase or in the previous cycle's luteal phase. And I'll explain why in a little while. But that's sort of a red flag. If you really notice that you're struggling to get out of bed, you're dragging yourself to do any exercise, I'm not saying you should push yourself if you are struggling, but it's a sign that things are a little bit out of balance and out of whack. So again, up to ovulation, go and do everything that you enjoy. Get sweaty, go and lift heavy, push yourself at the gym, go for those HIIT workouts. The only circumstance where I would say ease off a little bit is if you are noticing that stress is playing a big factor on your hormones. So if you get around ovulation a lot of pain through ovulation pain, if you get a lot of acne, you might get spotting, any kind of menstrual irregularities around ovulation, that is a sign perhaps that you may have pushed yourself too much. And then notice on a greater scale, is your cycle generally regular? Are you ovulating consistently around the same day every month? Are you sleeping well? All of these things, if they are out of balance, are signs that you are producing a lot of cortisol. And as wonderful as high intensity exercise can be, it is actually stressful on your body. Even though it is controlled stress or quote unquote good stress, it's still going to raise your cortisol level. So if your menstrual cycle is really out of balance, I wouldn't push yourself every day. I'd scale it back until you start to notice some changes. Now, after ovulation, if you are trying to conceive actively, two things are going to have happened. Either you're pregnant and your body is gearing up to do the biggest job it has ever done in its life, and that is going to take more energy, more capacity than anything that it has ever done before. Or you're not pregnant and your hormone levels are going to start to drop and your period is going to start again. We need to treat our bodies in that luteal phase the same way, no matter what's happening. So that's why we call it the 2-week wait. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can treat our body as though we are pregnant, but that also supports your body if you are not pregnant. So I don't want you to think you can't exercise during this phase, but here's where we want to scale things back. So whereas in the follicular or ovulatory phases, your yoga practice might have looked like vinyasa yoga or ashtanga or on these really, wonderful vinyasa flows where we're moving the body, lots of standing work, lots of warrior poses. Here's where I like to scale it back and we do more sort of slow flow, more restorative work, more poses to open out tension in the hips, but it's really a time to start calming your nervous system, which is so incredibly important at this time of the month. If you like to lift weights, then absolutely continue during your luteal phase, but scale it back. Instead of going for your absolute heaviest, personal best maximum, take lighter weights and do more reps so you're not feeling completely exhausted afterwards. And again, this is going to look a little bit different for everybody. So you're going to know in your body whether, for example, if you're lifting a weight that is so heavy, you can only do it 4, 5, or 6 times, this is too much. Go and pick a weight that you can easily do up to, say, 15 or 20 times. That way you know that your body isn't going to be overly stressed by that load. This also isn't a time to be doing high intensity or HIIT workouts. So again, these are going to increase your cortisol and your stress levels, and that's going to have an impact on your progesterone levels. And that's a really, really important thing. After you ovulate, your body starts to produce progesterone, and we need this hormone in order to support early pregnancy. We also need it to support the luteal phase in general. So if you know your luteal phase is short and your progesterone levels are low, that is a sign that perhaps your stress levels are stealing from your body's ability to produce progesterone. We've talked about this on the podcast before. The more cortisol you produce, the less your body is able to make progesterone. So we want to keep moving, gentle cardio, go for a walk, go for a swim, get on your bike. I'm not a big fan of running in the 2-week wait, and I'll get to that in a little while. But generally, we want to keep moving, but reduce frequency, intensity, and load. So I hope that answers your question about the 2-week wait. I get asked also quite a lot about Pilates. I think Pilates is fine during the 2-week wait. However, I would go easy on doing intense core exercises. So not a lot of crunches, not a lot of planks, side planks. And the reason being is that if you are pregnant or in these early stages of pregnancy, we are wanting to really encourage beautiful and continuous blood flow and circulation to the uterus. If you do a lot of intense core work, that tends to tighten up the muscles in that area and constrict that blood flow a little bit. It can't move as easily. So this is a time where I'd really recommend that focus on more, upper body, lower body, doing back work, really gentle with your core exercises. Now, what about if you are going through an IUI cycle? All of these rules apply absolutely the same through an IUI cycle, unless you're doing a medicated version. So some doctors will give you Clomid, letrozole, or even injections to prepare for an IUI. If that is the case, I'd like you to treat your IUI cycle as an IVF cycle. And the reason being is because of the swelling that happens in the ovaries if you are stimulated in preparation for that treatment. So we will talk about IVF because this is a big one. And again, I find that it's another one where doctors will say, don't exercise too much, take it easy. It's like, yeah, but what does that mean? And a lot of students will come to me panicked because their doctor has said to them, make sure you don't do any twists. And your doctor is half right. We don't want to do any deep, intense twists within your body because it can cause something called ovarian torsion. And it's a really terrible, serious condition where the ovary literally twists around on itself, and it often has to be rectified by surgery. It's a horrible thing, very painful, that you would never, ever want to happen. So when your doctor says don't twist, what they're meaning is anything that is a deep closed twist that really rotates down towards the lower back. So things that you might picture, if you think about a yoga practice, things like lying on your back, hugging your knees to your chest, and then turning your legs to the side. So you're pulling all of that load onto your lower back and your pelvis and really twisting through the lower part of your spine. Or other things like a rotated triangle. So when you're standing and reaching down to the floor and twisting towards your front leg, or a lunge where you reach one arm up to the ceiling and you're sort of twisting towards your leg while your leg is close towards your body. I hope that makes sense. You can look up deep closed twists on Google and you can get an idea of what to avoid. But these are the ones that you want to avoid. However, when my students will, panic, they say, I can't twist. I'm like, you can't actually get through your daily life without twisting or rotating your spine. Like that is impossible. I mean, how are you going to turn over in bed? How are you going to reach toilet paper when you're on the toilet? How are you going to reverse park when you're in your car? Like, you need to be able to rotate your spine. But what we want to do is rotate more that thoracic spine, that mid to upper back. And twists are actually so beneficial for us because they increase circulation to a lot of our major organs. So it's good to keep your spine moving. It also opens out any tightness in the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles between the ribs. So it allows us to breathe more easily. And we know that deep breathing is one of the best ways to calm stress levels, especially if you're going through IVF. So an open twist would look like, for example, you're sitting in a chair with your feet on the floor and you just rotate your upper back from side to side. So things like that are open twists and they are absolutely safe. So don't stress if you're going to a class and the teacher is doing some twists. Make sure that you know the difference between that open and closed twist. And you can, again, look up pictures on Google if you need to. I should mention, if you are going through an IVF cycle, it is incredibly important, if you're going to a group exercise class, that your instructor knows how to modify for you. It is hard to find. It's quite rare to find. But at the end of the day, like an IVF cycle, you're going to be stimming for 2 weeks, maybe another week on top of that if you're doing a fresh transfer. Like, it's not a big chunk of time out of your life. I really think this is a time for you just to give yourself permission to really scale things back and do some gentle stuff, like go for walks, get outside. That bilateral movement of walking is so calming and regulating for your nervous system. Going back to ovarian torsion just briefly, there are 2 other things that you need to be really careful of if you're going through IVF. The second is jumping and high impact exercises, or like a lot of box jumps, a lot of kind of sprinting, uphill sprints, things like that. And inversions, or intense inversions like handstands. We don't do any of that in fertility yoga. So if that's something you want to consider, don't worry. We don't do any intense inversions in fertility yoga. So yes, you need to avoid deep closed twists, a lot of jumping, a lot of sort of sprinting and running, and inversions. So those are kind of the IVF modifications. So things I would recommend for my students to do, literally just go for a walk. I mean, get outdoors if you can, get on a treadmill if you can't, do some like gentle yoga. But again, you need to work with someone who knows how to modify for an IVF cycle. And then if you have your transfer, whether it's a fresh or a frozen transfer, anything that you would do in the 2-week wait for a natural cycle, you can do after your transfer as well. The other thing I want to mention about IVF is if you're prepping for a frozen transfer. Now, this is a bit different because For those who might not be sure, a frozen transfer is, you've had your egg collection, you've made your embryos, and then they put them all in the freezer. And then you wait a month or 2 months or however long it might be, and then you have your transfer. So in those 2 weeks leading up to your transfer, you're going to have your period, and then you've got usually around 2 weeks before you'll go in for the procedure. This is a time where you can treat it like a follicular or an ovulatory phase, where you do want to be increasing that blood flow and energy again. So feel free, go and do all of your exercise that you love and go to the gym. Again, be mindful of any indicators that your stress levels are high, like is your sleep affected? Are you irritable? Are you losing your temper really easily? Signs that cortisol is high. In that case, scale it back a bit. But generally, as you're prepping for your FET, you can enjoy any kind of exercise that you love. So I hope that answers all of your questions around natural cycles and treatment cycles. There are 2 kind of controversial things that I get asked about a lot, and I have my own opinions on them, but I'm going to explain why and the reasons behind that. So not just me, giving my opinion for no reason. And those 2 things are running and hot yoga. So we'll talk about running first. Look, if you're trying to conceive and you're not a runner, this is not the time to start running. Running is a wonderful form of exercise because it's free. You can do it anywhere. You just need like a nice pair of shoes, and it releases so many endorphins. People love it. It's so hard to tell runners not to run. But if you've never really been a runner, don't start while you're trying to conceive. There's so many other better things that you can do. And no, you are not going to harm your baby. Generally, there's nothing you can physically do to harm your baby or cause a miscarriage at this time. Don't ever think that. Never, ever think that I'm going to tell you that you should place blame on yourself. My God, I had a loss. I ran. No, nothing that you do is going to harm your baby in terms of running. But it does increase your cortisol levels. Running is actually very stressful on your body. When you run, when you land, you are actually putting 6 times your body weight through your joints, through your knees, through your hips. And that is a lot of downward pressure on your pelvic floor, your hip stabilizers. And this can cause pain and issues later on in pregnancy. So it's something I really don't like to recommend in a 2-week wait. Because if you are pregnant, like I said, your body is starting to gear up to really change and move in ways that it has never moved before. Your pelvic floor is going to be under so much load that running during this time just isn't the best choice. No, you're not going to cause a miscarriage, but it is going to put a lot of stress on your body. And I think that there are better things that you can do at this time. Walking, swimming, cycling, yoga, that sort of stuff instead. Now, running during the follicular phase and ovulatory phase, go for it. If that's something that you love and you enjoy and that you're used to. But again, if you're not used to it and you're just finding like it is quite stressful on your body, I wouldn't recommend that you start it. But you could play around with that and see how it goes. But during the 2-week wait, for me, I would absolutely avoid it. Now, the other thing I get asked about a lot is hot yoga. This is the one thing where you need to be incredibly careful because it can have a really adverse effect on your baby. And I get asked about it a lot because people love it. Like, it's so addictive. I don't know. People love it or hate it, I should probably say. But the ones that love it, like it feels so good. You get out, you've just detoxed, you've sweated so much, your body's moved in ways it's not used to moving. Like, I get it. It's fun. And in these earlier stages of your cycle, it might be okay, in your follicular phase. I'd say later follicular phase, not too close to your period, and ovulation, probably fine. But again, it is extremely stressful. So not only are you increasing the temperature of the environment that you're exercising in, you are raising your core body temperature, and that's what causes you to sweat so much. Raising your core body temperature during early pregnancy has been scientifically proven and correlated with neural tube defects and early miscarriage. So this is something you really need to avoid. And that includes things like saunas and hot baths. I think we're probably told about saunas and hot baths more often. So if it's something you do want to do, absolutely not during the 2-week wait. And again, just look for those signs of dysregulation and higher stress levels in your body. If you're struggling to sleep, if you are very irritable, short-tempered, maybe leave it because it's a sign that your body is already at capacity. Okay, so I think that I have answered all of the questions that I had been collecting over the last sort of couple of weeks. And like, if you have any other questions that you'd like the answer to about, your specific journey or cycle or particular types of exercise, please reach out to me. You can email me, you can DM me anytime. And if you think that this episode might be helpful for someone who's trying to conceive, please share it with them. It's a wonderful way just to share this information to as many people as we can. Now, on the next episode of the podcast, I'm inviting my first man to the podcast. We're going to be speaking with David from Fertility for Men. And he's so lovely. And, he's been through a long fertility journey with his wife. And I really just wanted to ask him questions about this journey from a male perspective, and not just like how he has felt throughout the journey, whilst I think that's really important and valid, but things like, what can we do if our partners aren't on board in the same way we are, or, they're not taking their supplements, not looking after themselves the way, and how can we kind of communicate with them? So I think this conversation will be really helpful, and probably one you can listen to with your partner or send to them if you think that would help them as well. So until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.